If I look a little disheveled this afternoon, you're going to have to forgive me. I was up late last night watching my baseball team go to the World Series. Why? Because I won it all. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and it is now time. The final week of the 2025 CFL regular season, week 21, and I didn't really go back and kind of do the math on this, but it feels like it's been a long time, if ever, that we've had a week 21 where every game matters at least to one of the teams. We don't have any throwaway games in week 21, which is very exciting. It means every game, at least as we stand right now, before the week starts, every game matters. Now, I do kind of wish the CFL would be a little more aggressive like the NFL is in flexing games to different spots based on the, playoff storylines and things like that. I put that on Twitter this morning. I just kind of wish the CFL was a little more aggressive in doing stuff like that. But as it stands, we've still got 4 games that right now matter. Sorry for missing last week's show. My picks were on Twitter, and the picks were even money across the board. 2-2 straight up, 2-2 against the spread, and 2-2 on the totals. Means I'm still 3 games under 500 against the spread, so I do have a chance this week to end at or above 500 against the spread to end the regular season. I've still at least got a chance, chip in a chair, and that'll come back when we talk about CFL fantasy. It's still been a relatively solid season. Obviously we started so slow and then had a couple of real hot streaks there in the middle. But yeah, 6-6 last week, and kind of middle of the board with CFL fantasy too last week. I started off slow. I finished with 97.1, which is not a terrible score, but I did not keep up with the field last week. 97.1 meant that I tumbled almost 160 spots overall in CFL fantasy, and I'm now chasing that top 250. I'm closer to number 500 than I am to number 250, all the way down to 456 overall on the season, 2,259.7 points, averaging about 107.5 per week. I want that average to be like 10 points higher. So unfortunately, we're not quite going to get to that point, but still have a puncher's chance here in the last week. From the peanut gallery. My 2 CFL fantasy football leagues, CFL Central and Christina Costabile's league. Obviously, I fell in both of those leagues, dropping 23 places in CFL Central down to 61st out of 1385. And in Christina Costabile's league, still just inside the top 40 at 38th out of 383. Shout out to my MVP from last week, who was Montreal running back Stevie Scott III with a low cost, I think less than $6,000 for sure, but he returned me 22.5 points, 18 touches, a $115 in all-purpose yards, and a rush touchdown. He was my MVP from last week. We got the Ottawa REDBLACKS in Hamilton taking on the Ticats. Calgary is in Edmonton taking on the Elks. Montreal is in Winnipeg taking on the Bombers, and the Riders, with the West bye all the way to the West Final in their back pocket, they play host to the BC Lions. So like I said, 4-game slate this week. All 4 of them matter. I want to tell you exactly why. So before we get into any picks or anything like that, I'm going to tell you why these 4 games all matter, just in case you haven't been following along. Ottawa at Hamilton, why it matters. Ottawa's already eliminated from playoff contention. The Hamilton Ticats are still playing for the number 1 seed in the East Division. And with a Ticats win, they clinch that East Division title. They clinch that first round bye straight to the East Final. So everything on the table here for the Hamilton Ticats. Ottawa on the other side, obviously they're just playing for pride and for next year at this point. The Ticats should be all go in this game. There's no reason to hold anybody or anything back. That first round bye is extremely important during the grind of the CFL playoffs. So Hamilton should be all go, and I don't see any reason why the Ticats shouldn't dominate this game. So give me the Ticats to win this one outright, and I'm going to take them to cover the minus 13.5 points against the spread. That's a big number, but again, it's against a non-playoff team. They're not playing for anything but pride. Who knows who's going to be in the starting lineup or even the depth lineup for Ottawa coming into this game. So less than 2 touchdowns, just barely less than 2 touchdowns on a team that's probably objectively one of the best teams in the East, one of the 2 best teams in the East. I think I got to lay those points. So let's lay the minus 13.5 on Hamilton. Total in the game, 52.5. I think this game goes over. Hamilton should push 40 in this game, I think, on their own. So this number should go above this, over 52.5 points. We're going to go like a 38-18 final score here. 20-point win for the Ticats, who do lock up the East Division title. So rather than going directly to the next game, I want to go to the other game that impacts. The fact that Hamilton ties up the East Division number 1 with that win impacts the Montreal Alouettes in Winnipeg taking on the Bombers. So with Hamilton wrapping up that bye, Montreal then no longer has anything to play for. They know they're playing the East semifinal. They know they're hosting the East semifinal, which means they're probably resting most of their starters because they want those players as rested and ready to go for next week when this week's game does not matter. As it sits right now, if Montreal were to win this game after Hamilton loses, if somehow Hamilton loses to the Red Blacks in the first game of the week and Montreal beats Winnipeg, then Montreal would get that first round bye. So in a world where Hamilton loses that opening game, this game means everything to Montreal and they should be full go. Given that we've already said, well, we have a decision and Hamilton wins that game, Montreal doesn't really have anything to play for in that context. Winnipeg, with a win and a Lions loss that's the final game of the week, is it not? So if Winnipeg were to win and BC loses, then Winnipeg is not the crossover team over to the East Division. One of those 2 teams, Winnipeg or BC, is going to cross over to the East. I talked about it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Winnipeg has been very good against the East Division, so if I'm sitting there and I'm Mike O'Shea and I'm the Bombers, I probably want to cross over to the East, even though, you have to play either Hamilton or Montreal, but you've had good results against the East Division this year. So I think I would feel comfortable being the crossover team regardless. I think Hamilton's going to win that first game, which means Montreal has nothing to play for, which means Winnipeg is probably playing Montreal's backups. So we're going to go ahead and take the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to win that game. Right now, the Bombers are favored by 7.5 points. They're playing some second stringers for Montreal. 7.5 points, having to buy that extra hook on a full touchdown. Montreal is a very well-coached team top to bottom. As you can see, they just re-signed a couple of important members of their executive, Machocha and Coach Moss. So they just re-signed both of those guys. This is a well-run organization. 7.5 points, I think, is too much either way here. So regardless of win or loss, I'm actually going to take the plus 7.5 on Montreal. So Winnipeg wins, taking the plus 7.5 on the Alouettes. Total is 49.5 points. I think this total stays under. Again, Montreal predicated, I think, on defense first. Winnipeg hasn't been the offensive powerhouse this season that they've been in years past. Give me the under on this number, under 49.5 points in Montreal, Winnipeg. Let's go like a 26-20 final. Winnipeg wins. Give me the plus 7.5 on the Alouettes, and it goes under the point total. Now, we're going to jump back up to the Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Elks. Here's why this game matters. For the Elks, it doesn't. They're playing for next year. They're not going to make the playoffs, playing for pride, all that fun stuff. A Calgary win in this game puts pressure on the BC Lions because that puts BC in a situation where, again, they might not get to host that home playoff game in the West. But the Stamps win puts pressure on the Lions for the number 2 seed in the West Division and that home playoff game, which is exceptionally important in the West. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I think I might have put this on Twitter too. Every team in the West Division is at least a game over 500 at home. So home field advantage is so hypercritical in the West Division. You have to have that home playoff game, I think, if you're going to have success in the postseason. So all the teams that are gunning for that should want that really, really bad. I mean, knowing that you're going to have to play next week anyway, resting some starters in the second half of the game might be a possibility. here for Calgary, but I don't really think it's much on the board. I think the Stamps should probably be full go here again to lock up, or try to lock up, that home playoff game. So give me the Calgary Stampeders to win this game in Edmonton, and I'm going to lay the -4.5 points on them as well. Stamps win, Stamps cover -4.5. Total in the game set at 53.5 points. These are two offensive-minded teams. Edmonton should probably be going full board here as well to end the season on a positive note. So give me the over on this one as well. Over 53.5 points. We're going to go 33-23 in favor of the Calgary Stampeders. Win, cover, and go over on the points. So that Calgary win, as I said, now we go to the last game. The pressure is on the BC Lions, who are on the road in Saskatchewan, taking on a Riders team that doesn't have anything to play for, but rested some starters last week, have a bye week coming up in their back pocket. Where's the motivation to sit players? I don't think they have it. I think the Riders, other than like the concern over freak injuries, which obviously is a concern, but when you know you're not going to play another football game for 2 weeks, anything outside of like a significant injury, it's probably not going to factor in. I think the Riders are going to be full go here, at the very least in the first half. I think they start all their starters and then maybe kind of play it by ear through the second half. I think this is going to be a playoff-style competitive atmosphere, especially where this might be rematched in 2 weeks. Very critical game here. If the Lions win, they get that home playoff game next week, whereas a loss, depending on how the rest of the week works out, may put them in a position where they're crossing over to the East Division to have to go play either Montreal or Hamilton. Right now, the Lions are 9.5 point favorites on the road, which is an embarrassing number. That number is playing it like the Riders are going to sit most of their starters, which I don't believe makes any sense. And I think this is one of those Vegas blind spots where they've got people in charge of making the lines for CFL who do not pay attention to this league. So this is something I think we take advantage of. I am going to take the BC Lions to win this game. I think they're going to have to come back late to do it. I think the Riders are going to lead this game probably through 3 quarters and then maybe start pulling starters. I think BC kind of backdoors this game. Give me the Lions to win, but give me that +9.5 on Saskatchewan. I think that is easy money in this spot. Lions win, Riders plus the 9.5. Total here is 51.5 points. I think this is a pretty good number, but I think it just barely goes up over. I'm going to go like a 28-24. Again, I think the Riders win this, or the Lions win this thing late. Clear as mud, right? Here's all you need to know. Based on how I think the games are going to go, I've got the Hamilton Ticats as the East #1 seed. I've got Montreal at #2, and I've got Winnipeg being the crossover team. So that makes a Montreal-Winnipeg East semifinal in Montreal. That's going to be a hell of a game. Since I've got the BC Lions winning, I've got them hosting the Calgary Stampeders in the West semifinal for the right to then go on and play Saskatchewan. That's how I think it plays out. There are still a lot of possibilities on the board. That's just how I think it's going to go. So we're not going to have a CFL fantasy roster in this video because I think at the time of my recording this, I don't think the game has unlocked yet for this week. But even if it has, I got to wait and see some depth charts here, man. Like, the last week in fantasy is an absolute crapshoot. So we're going to have to see how this one plays out. But I do have something else for you. In a race against time, against the rain that I can definitely feel is about to start over my head, I've got some all-CFL teams for you. I sat down this morning and decided my first, second, and third team all-CFL. I'm going to take the next minute, maybe 2 minutes, and drop those rosters for you that you can see visually like I do with my fantasy teams. So we're going to start with my first team all-CFL, right in front of you right now. This is headlined by Nathan Rourke at quarterback, stacking him with Keon Hatcher, his #1 receiver. I took Dedrick Mills as my #1 running back. It was very close for me between Mills and the guy that I put at second team. Offensive line was kind of a crapshoot on all three of these rosters. I went with Boyko here. The fact that Calendar wasn't an option for me made me very upset because I think he was the best O-lineman in the CFL this year, but he wasn't an option on there, so I went with Boyko. Micah Awe at linebacker. Betts at D-line. Stavros, I think, is the obvious choice there at DB. Lyram Haralahu, what a season for him kicking the football. Vassett as my punter, and Tyrell Richards as my special teamer for my first team All-CFL. Second team All-CFL. Here it comes for you right now. We got Bo Levi Mitchell stacked with his number one target, Kenny Lawler, and I took Justin Rankin there as the running back on my all-second team CFL. Again, very close between Mills and Rankin. My second O-lineman, I went with Neufeld. My original choice there was Couture, but he wasn't an option. Tyrese Beverett as my second team linebacker. Hauser, my second team D lineman. McFadden from Toronto as my second team DB. Mark Leggio, my second team kicker. Haggerty from Toronto as my second team punter. And my second team special teamer was originally going to be Janarian Grant, and I swapped it over to Trey Vavall. And then coming right at you, third team All-CFL, and this one's going to be a shocker to start. Cody Fajardo, my third team All-CFL quarterback. The entire culture of the Edmonton Elks changed when Cody Fajardo took over a quarterback, and I wanted to find a way that I could acknowledge that, and I think putting him as my third team All-CFL at the quarterback position was a great way to do so. We're going to go with Kevin Maital as my third team wide receiver and Brady Oliveira as my third team running back, who had another excellent season in Winnipeg. Third team O-lineman, I went with Williams. I wanted Gagnon, but we're going to go with Williams because, once again, Gagnon was not an option. Jones as my third team linebacker. Adeyemi Berglund from Montreal on the D-line. Peters as my third team DB. Maltos Diaz and Zema from Montreal as kicking and punting, so just kind of stacking Montreal Alouettes there as third team special teamers, and Janarian Grant as my third team special team. So there you go. Those are my three All-CFL lineups for the 2025 season. I'd be curious to know who your first team All-CFLers are. Let me know in the comments section below. That is it. Those are my picks and plays for the final week of the CFL season. Let's go over them here with you one more time. I've got Hamilton, Calgary, Winnipeg, and the BC Lions winning their games this week outright. Minus 13.5 on the Ticats, minus 4.5 on the Stampeders, plus 7.5 on the Montreal Alouettes, and plus 9.5 on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Those are my spread plays. I got 3 of the 4 games going over their point totals this week. Over 52.5 in Ottawa Hamilton, over 53.5 in Calgary Edmonton, and over 51.5 in BC Saskatchewan, taking the under on the 49.5 points in Montreal Winnipeg. Ladies and gentlemen, the regular season is now in the rear view. I can't wait for the games this week. Again, 4 games that at the beginning of the week all matter for the CFL postseason. And the next time we see each other, we'll be previewing the East and West semifinals. Who's going to be there? Where are the games going to be? We're just going to have to watch this week to find out. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. I'm getting out of here before I get rained on. Enjoy the games in Week 21. We'll see you again for the hashtag CFL Playoffs. Go Jays, go.